I don't think we finalized it, but we can talk after. Oh God. Sorry about the delay. Both Daniel and I had a midterm before this. So yeah, what's up?
Is that the 116Z one?
That sounds right.
It's like,
You know, Daniel?
I think those are, yeah.
The professor we have is like very new and doesn't know what he's doing kind of like
I've heard that 116Z is like, I've heard like it's gonna be tough. That's what I took 116Z last quarter.
but the thing is if you look at the is part of it, they're like always better.
Yeah.
Okay, we good? I mean, it's already kind of late.
Yeah.
Okay, we should be recording. Yeah, thank you guys for all for coming out. I know it's midterm season, so it can be kind of rough. Today we're going to be doing a workshop on continuous integration and deployment, or CI/CD for short. I think you guys probably already have access to these. If not, the slides, we'll post them in a second. So if we can move forward. Okay, this is the event code if you want it. I'll give you guys a second. Okay, is anyone good? Yeah, what's up?
Oh, you go into like the main ACM, like UCLA ACM website, and then you like put in the codes for like events you've attended.
Yeah, you'll get like points. I think there's some sort of prize.
Yeah, but they have. I don't think he's finalized the budget for the prize.
Yeah, and if you're starting now, it's a bit of a uphill battle.
I don't think like I don't think a lot of people are doing it, so it's like might as well give it a shot. But
Yeah.
Most people will stop around like 6.
Quitters never win.
Okay, cool. Yeah, quick note on the workshop structure. This is the same as last time. We're just going to kind of give it, like, do a little lecturing, turn it over to you guys to do some work, and then walk through it in a demo at the end. Okay, cool. So this is kind of our overview for today. We're going to start with a recap of Docker and Docker Hub. Sure. Okay, actually, let me just come over there. Okay, so what is Docker? Does anyone want to take a shot at explaining it from last time? Or if you know? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's when like some rate of support multiple instances.
Sure. Yeah, I think the way I would go about defining it is that Docker basically allows you to run any sort of software that you have in a kind of packaged, containerized fashion so that you can run it on any sort of hardware without any voids. So yeah, kind of tying into that, if you have like 3 different websites that you want to run, generally you'd want to either Dockerize it or if you know what hardware it's going to run on, I guess theoretically you could get away with not doing that. And then run that Docker container on some sort of server so that users can access your site. And you could run multiple Docker containers on that server, assuming it's strong enough to support that. Yeah. So in order to actually run something with Docker, you're going to have to use Docker daemon, which is essentially just like a processor labeled as container engine that allows you to actually leverage the specific hardware. So for example, if I'm using a Windows machine here, but my code is written for a Linux machine, the container engine will basically allow you to translate and actually use the system calls, the Windows system calls, without having to worry about what actual operating system you're running. Okay. So a little bit of terminology that we covered last time. When you're using Docker, you'll probably hear the term image. That just refers to like a snapshot of everything that you need for your application. So this would be like any dependencies and like the general steps to kind of set up your running app. And then there's a notion of a container, which is basically a deployed image. So you can run an image as a container locally, or if you're running it on like some sort of server, you'll also be running a container there. And then we have this notion of Docker Hub, which is what's known as a container registry. So in reality, it's just storing images. It's not storing containers themselves. But you use those images, you can like pull them and push them out, just like code with GitHub, and then run those images locally. And then Docker Desktop is what you guys were hopefully using last time. You can also interact with the Docker daemon through like the command line, but this is a little bit simpler for beginners. Okay, cool. So yeah, a quick note on how the workflow actually works when you're developing with Docker, because we kind of glazed over this last time. So first, you'll go ahead and kind of create your application completely independent of Docker. Like in this case, this is just like a React website that we created last time, or I guess I created and shared with you guys. And then the next step would be to create a Docker file. So that's actually the full file name. There's no extension on it. And it looks something like this. So this is an example of the Docker file that we're currently using for our app, that if you ran the demo last time, you would have used this. Maybe you didn't look at it, but you were ultimately using this. So let's kind of go line by line and see what this is actually doing. The Docker file is essentially like a set of steps that allows you to build an image from scratch, essentially. So the first line there is saying from, and then there's some sort of node something as builder. What that's doing is it's saying use this pre-existing image released by Node, version 18, I guess Alpine, and then call it builder. And then it's saying once we pull down that pre-existing image, set the working directory to this, and then copy all of our files in our current directory to the new image that we're building. And that's what these two docs mean. Okay, and then after that, it's saying run npm install, and then run npm run build. And then down here, it's saying now pull a new, like a separate image that's already pre-existing, nginx, and then set this configuration variable, this environment variable. And then it's saying copy over from the builder image that we were just working in, the app this directory. So this is the build directory, if you recall from 2 workshops ago, into the new production image that we're creating here. And then finally, it's just copying over the configuration file that we provided for Nginx. So ultimately, after running this, we've created one image here that all it's really done is just use Node to build our app. And then we created another image here. This is the one that we're actually going to be sharing. That basically has Nginx to serve the app, and then has all the build files that we just copied over, so that people can actually, like, we actually have our data. Does that kind of make sense at a high level what's going on here with this file? So this is actually all you need to kind of explain away like how to create the app. Assuming you have the files, this is the only, like, assuming you have the React files, all you really need is this Docker file to create and run your container. Okay, so once you have that Docker file written, the next step would be to just build the image locally. So all this is doing is just running that Docker file. And then you just want to run that image as a container locally to make sure that it actually runs properly. So I think we did this last time, but all it really entails is just running this command and then going to localhost and making sure, just like if you were to run the React site, like with npm run dev, you should be able to see it, but now it's in a container. Okay, and the final step would be to just push out that Docker image to Docker Hub or like a similar container registry so that others can use it. Okay, so here's a quick overview of like what that process really looks like in practice. So somebody would write their Docker file, kind of build it locally, and then run it locally to make sure that's working. They would push it out to Docker Hub or a different container registry, and then the server production environment, in our case AWS, will pull in the image and then build a container environment. Okay, any questions on kind of this overall workflow? Okay, this is all more or less review from last time. Okay, so Daniel, we're gonna pass it over to you for ACM.
All right, so what is Elastic Container Registry? Well, Elastic Container Registry, you can think of it as like AWS's ripoff of Docker Hub. So they basically took took this tool that this small company had and just ripped it off, and now they have this, and you have to pay money to use it. Okay, so anyways, it's basically just like Docker Hub, and you just use that to manage all of your internal Docker instances or like Docker images. And you can also use whatever CLI you want to pull, push, and download all these images into your local machine. And then there's also multiple formats. So you have like Docker images, you have open container initiative images, and as well as the OCI artifacts. Okay, so here are the multiple components of ECR. So first is a registry where each AWS account is provided one private registry to create, and you can create one or more repositories. You also have an authentication token, which is used to make sure that you actually do have the correct access to, push and pull Docker images from your registry. And, each repository, you can also push and pull images. So it's like kind of like a subdivided folder. So you have like a registry, which is like everything you can access. And you can split up your repositories depending on different you like say you have a company, you can select your repositories between different departments for like very specific applications that they're responsible for. And then you also have multiple images that you can use. So like each different app instance would have different configuration requirements. So you would separate those into different images within your repository. And you also have a repository policy, which is like basically like permissions. You control who can access your repository and who can do what, like if they can push, pull, things like that. And so what is DevOps? So DevOps is development and operations, and it was a term created by Patrick Du Bois in 2009. And so basically all it is just creating this digital infrastructure to create more digital infrastructure. So it's kind of like a pyramid scheme in a sense. So yeah, it's like paving a road so you can drive faster. So you can drive faster on asphalt than on dirt. And that's all DevOps is essentially. And so what you want to do with DevOps is foster collaboration. So you want to make it as easy as possible for someone new to interact with your code and make sure that everything you push into your code can be checked for correctness, can be integrated very quickly and can be easily debugged, so that you can just move faster with your progress on your code base. And so the core principles, right? Automation, right? You don't want to do all these menial tasks manually, right? So typically how this would work is you just have like a shell script or something, and it would just run all the unit tests on your code before you actually actually commit it to your repository. Continuous integration just means that you make one small change and merge it in to your main repo, and you just keep repeating this for like every little feature. And continuous delivery means that you don't just sit on your new implemented features in your private repo before deploying it to production, right? You want to continuously update your production server code to reflect your private repo. As soon as you like finish testing it, you just want to push it out, see how it does, and and another thing you want to do is monitor and feedback. So once you push out your new features into the production, if something goes wrong, you want to be able to keep track of that, right? You want to collect data on how it's doing, how it's performing on user metrics, if it's actually improving the product, and if it doesn't, you want to also be able to like roll it back easily as well. Okay.
Okay, cool. So let's kind of talk through with the example of our own sort of app, what DevOps would look like in practice. So kind of we're gonna focus in on the CI/CD aspects, so the continuous integration, continuous development and delivery. So specifically, what we want is to have any kind of new user, assuming they have credentials, make a change to the code and then commit it to our main branch, and then we want that change to just be deployed in our live site, more or less instantaneously, so that they can continue to release those features quickly. So generally, the steps that we would need to take to do this are to have some sort of place to store our code, some sort of automated step to build a Docker image based off of the latest version of the code, and then a step to deploy the image once it's been built. So improvements on this kind of very bare bones CI/CD model are like automatic rollbacks if like a Docker image fails to build or fails to deploy. We can also do what's known as a blue-green deployment, where we have maybe we have a new feature that we want to test out. So we commit it to like a testing branch, and then maybe like 10% of our users are directed to that particular build, while most of them kind of stay with the reliable build that we have in production. Okay. And then on the right there, I have kind of a little diagram that showcases the development workflow. So generally, what we'll see is that uh, uh, folks mostly want to stick in this area if they're like software developers, right? Like just planning and then actually coding. But if you're like a DevOps person, which more and more roles kind of are getting into, you may need to work on setting up like automated builds. Like Daniel was mentioning, you can have like some sort of like automated shell that tests out your code that runs a series of unit tests. And then once it passes, you can actually release and deploy it, and then kind of start the cycle over again. Okay. So for code storage, here are a couple different kind of popular tools that, well, some of them are popular, that people use. GitHub is very popular, right? Everyone kind of knows it, or at least has heard of it, hopefully. But yeah, it's honestly, I think it's the best choice there. It has very simple UI, but it also has like many features that, like if you're trying to do something, more than likely you can do it with GitHub. Some other solutions are Bitbucket, or I think GitLab, is also a good choice. They generally kind of integrate with other products that an organization may be using. So I guess that's an advantage there. And then like at enterprise scale, generally those will be cheaper than using GitHub. And then AWS actually has their own kind of code repository called CodeCommit, but it's honestly it's kind of bad. The only reason you may want to use it is if you have like some sort of compliance requirements. So like if you're working for the government and they are running code already on AWS and they don't want to have like two different places, you may need to stick with it. And then the other advantage, which honestly is kind of overlooked sometimes, is that you can continue to use centralized permissioning. So AWS, obviously, they have the kind of notion of IAM that we talked about, where like you can create users and then give them specific permissions. If you're sticking within AWS, you can continue to leverage those specific permissions, and you don't have to generate like API keys or security keys or whatever to kind of interface between GitHub and Amazon and worry about those kind of falling into the wrong hands. But yeah, any questions on kind of the different code storage services here? Yeah, pretty straightforward. Okay, so now once we have our code stored, in our case, we're going with GitHub. We need to have some sort of way to build a Docker image based off of our code automatically. So yeah, I think the two most popular options that you'll probably see are GitHub Actions, which can also do source code checks. So it can basically do unit tests for you, assuming you set it up properly. And then AWS Code Build, which is what we'll be using because we're hoping to teach more AWS services. Yeah, so with Code Build, you can continue to leverage that centralized permissioning. And then it also, again, integrates with another AWS service called Secret Manager. We haven't really talked about it, but basically it allows you to kind of securely store like API keys and stuff and actually automatically rotate, I think like the encryption key or something like that. So basically it's very secure. Yeah, and then you'll see that some people kind of like to use both. Like theoretically, you could use GitHub Actions for source code checks and then feed into Code Build for building the image. Yeah, any questions? Oh yeah, what's up?
We're using Go just for AWS. Why are we just instead of
Good question. Well, I think that's honestly a valid question. If I had to pose an answer, I guess I would say GitHub is more accessible. So as kind of geared more towards beginners to cloud, people are probably more familiar with GitHub, maybe have a GitHub account. And for the first couple of workshops, they can kind of work with the code easier. Theoretically, we could transition to using AWS Code Commit. So if you have free time, feel free to try to migrate over and see what that looks like. Yeah, but in practice, I've very rarely seen anyone use Code Commit. So it's not really that useful skill for now. Any other questions before we move on? Okay. Yeah, and then so once we have our builder building the image, we actually need to push it out somewhere so that like otherwise the builder is just building it and then throwing it out, right? So to actually store our image prior to deploying it, we probably want to use either one of these two container registries. We're going to be using ECR because it's managed by Amazon. Yeah, another advantage of using ECR is that you can keep, I mean, both of them offer private, um, I guess, repositories, but ECR allows you to, again, keep that permissioning kind of centralized with IAM. Okay. And then finally, once we have our image stored, we need to actually deploy it. Um, so yeah, the way to kind of automate that is either with GitHub Actions again, or we can use AWS's code pipeline service, which we're going to use in this case. So yeah, with code pipeline, basically it's a little bit more reliable than GitHub Actions. I don't know for sure if GitHub Actions has like a kind of maximum like execution time, like guarantee or whatever, but code pipeline has like a standard AWS kind of availability and reliability guarantees. So it'll more or less run instantaneously. Um, and then yeah, something that I've noticed is that code pipeline doesn't by default have like rollback feature built in. So if your deployment fails, then your instance is going to be offline. So yeah, if you can use this service called code deploy to kind of set that up, but in this case, we're not going to be doing that because it's a little bit more overhead. Okay. Any questions on the deployment process? Okay, great. So yeah, quick summary, and then kind of tying it back into that architecture diagram that I created a while ago. We're using GitHub to store our code, and then code build to build an image of our code, a Docker image. We're storing the Docker image in ECR, and then we are using code pipeline to actually kind of step through these steps, and then finally deploy the image with less beanstalk, as we've been doing. Okay. Any questions on the overall process before we get into it? Okay, then now we'll turn it over to you guys. What time is it? We will probably reconvene at maybe around 7:30 or so. Depending on unless you guys finish faster. But yeah, the next steps for you would be to go to the cloud link at the bottom of the slides. Let me see if I can open it up. Hold on. Let's see cloud. There we go. Yeah, good point. Let me do that. Good link. Okay, here we go. Resources. Whoops. Okay. CI/CD, DevOps. Cool. Yeah. Let me know if you're having trouble accessing that. But you're gonna want to look under week 5 of the repo, and then if you scroll down, there should be kind of a step-by-step guide of the process to take care. But you'll essentially be walking through all those services that we talked about. Some of the steps can be a little bit tricky, but mostly it should be pretty smooth. So yeah, we will turn it over to you. Feel free to ping us if you have any questions. Is anyone able to actually do the full deployment? No? Okay. Yeah, I think some of the steps at the end are a bit tricky. I was running into an issue myself when I was running this the other day. I think, what was the problem? I think it may have been this permission or something. But let's go through it and we can see if we can do it together. Okay, so first step, obviously open up AWS. Make sure I'm recording too. Okay. You're heading up, Simon? I see it. All right, so make sure you're in the right region here, because I'm not. And then you want to go to ECR, so that's the container registry. And then you can click on Get Started here or repositories, and then create repository. So we'll give it a name. We'll just go with this one, I guess. Yeah, we can leave it as private. and then everything else here should be fine. So remove this, then create. Okay, great. Now we've created that. Okay, the next step that I've listed here is to fork the repo. So I guess I can go ahead and do that. So all that really entails is just kind of going to the repo and then clicking fork here. Actually, I think I already have a forked one. So let me just open that up. What's the best way to do that? There we go. Okay, but if you click the button, it should effectively do this. Open up, basically clone the repo into your own account so you can freely edit it without any permission issues. Okay, great. And then the next step is to go under week 5 under the Docker file. Sorry, not the Docker file, the Docker run file here. And then update this line. So what you're gonna want to do is make sure you have your own account ID, and this part here is the ECR registry name, so that when Elasticsearch tries to run your image, it knows to look under ECR. And then to get the account ID, all you need to do is just click up here and then copy this. Okay, cool. And then another thing that somebody pointed out was that you want to make sure you're working in the North Virginia region. If not, you're going to need to change this to reflect where you created your ECR container registry. Container repository, I should say. Okay, great. So now that we're done with the ECR side, did anyone get stuck on the ECR side? Okay, glad to hear. Let's move on to code build. So to do that, just gonna click here. And then click on create build project. We'll give it a name, ACM Cloud Live project. And then as the source, we're gonna want to use GitHub because that's where our code is. So once this loads, so in our case, the repository may or may not be public. There should be a button here that says like connect to GitHub. I think I've already connected, so it must have cached it or something. But actually, let me just click this. Here we go. It'll look like this. So I just click that. And then it should ask for your password or whatever. I guess it's caching it. So I'm just clicking confirm. And then now it should let you choose a repository. I think the repository should be public if you fork it by default, but you may be able to change that. I'm just going to copy over the link to it here. Oh, not there. Here we go. Paste it in. And we can see it follows the format they say, right? Okay. And then everything else here should be fine as the default. Over here, we're going to want to choose Amazon Linux, I believe. And then standard runtime, and then the latest standard image. So what you'll see is that here they're also reusing the word image. What this is that code build is essentially pulling an Amazon Linux image, running that, and then it's building your image within this kind of running container, and then it's spitting out your build files and then shutting this. Okay. Everything else here should be okay. Under additional configuration, we're going to have to specify some environment variables. So let's just add that in. So if we look at the README, it says we have to specify the default region. Okay, US East 1. The account ID, an image tag here, which should be latest, and then the image repo name. So this will just, if we go back to ECR, we open that up. This will be the same container registry repository name here. Okay. And then for account ID, again, we just get it from up here. Okay. And then under build spec, we have to specify the path to the build spec file. So what is a build spec file? Let's actually go and take a quick look. So if we open that up, we can see that this is what's being passed into AWS code build. And it's effectively saying and explaining what code build should be doing. So it's saying, I guess, get authenticate to ECR, and then it should say, let's see. Oh yeah, so yeah, it's authenticating VCR, and then it's doing some logging here with the echo statements, and then it's building the image um, with the files under week 5, and then it's tagging it with this long string latest at the end, and then it's doing a little more logging here, and then pushing it out to ECR. And then finally, at the end, 1 second, at the end here, it is saying, okay, so as output, spit out this file, which is in this working directory. Yeah, what is this question?
For AWS ACM, get login password, is it, is password standard name just the password? I just feel it.
Um, let's see. Yeah, that's a good question. So I think what it's doing is it's saying, well, the Docker login is the command, right? And then username is, I guess it's AWS is the username of credit. And this is just saying get the password from standard input, like you were saying. So what's happening is this is getting the password and then just typing it here in standard input, right? And then I think this is maybe like an unnamed parameter or something that specifies the actual repository that it's logging into. I'm not totally sure about that last parameter. But yeah, the password is being piped in with standard, which is why this is probably like a flag, I guess. Yeah, I'll take a look at the password.
It's able to get the password because it has like the permissions from all.
Yes, yeah, code build can run this command here because of the item. So, any other questions on the build spec? Okay. So then I think beyond that, let's go back to the README. Yeah, we're good to go. So let's go ahead and create the build project. And then we have to add one more permission before we actually run a build. Once this runs. So we should go to build details and then open up the service role. And then I'm just going to copy the permission here. It just allows code build to actually interact with ECR. Okay, so add policy, just like we did last time. Oh, thank you. There we go. Okay, so we should be good. Let's go ahead and click start build here. And then we can actually see what the logs look like once they run. And you'll notice that it's basically just doing the same Docker commands that we were doing locally. So a lot of this output will look the same as what we were doing locally the other day, last week, I guess, and the week before. Okay. So while that's running, let's quickly look over here at the next steps that we will need. So I will open up code pipeline. And then we can click on create pipeline. Okay. This should all be okay. Click next. Source provider is GitHub again. I think we wanted version 1 because this allows you to connect with the button, which is convenient. Okay. Give it a second to load. Oh dear God, okay. ACM. Where's this? Here we go. Make sure this is the right one. Yep. Okay, so I'm just selecting the repository and then selecting the main branch. And then we want to go with this webhooks approach, which will basically allow connect GitHub to code pipeline in such a way that if we commit a change to GitHub, GitHub will push out a notification to code pipeline, notifying it that, hey, there's a new version to deploy. So then code pipeline will pull that in and then do the deployment. Okay, so once that's done, that's good. Select code build as the builder, and then the same project we just created. Everything else here is fine. And then for deployment, we're going to want to choose Elastic Beanstalk, but let me make sure that I actually have an Elastic Beanstalk instance environment that's running, because if not, we have to create one real quick. So click on environments. Oh, damn it. Okay. So this is if you deleted everything, which is best practice. Let's go ahead and create a new Elastic Beanstalk environment. Okay, so I'm giving it a name. This time, again, we want to choose Docker, but we can choose sample application instead of uploading our own code this time, because we're going to override it anyways with the code pipeline stuff. Yep. Uh-huh.
But I think that I did choose samples.
That's when you create, like, when you press next.
No, this area is after.
So before, is this in relation to code pipeline at all, or just Elastic stuff?
This is almost.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be good. Okay, so I'm just choosing the same profile that we created last time that allows us to uh I forget the permissions that we added to it, but there was some permission we could add. And then we can just click skip to review. And then finally just submit. Okay, so this may take a second to run. So while this is running, let's go check on our build, which was here, and we can see it succeeded fine. So a way to confirm this is if we go to ECR and then click on this repository, we can see that there's a new image here. So this is akin to kind of like Docker Hub, where we were pushing out Docker images. Now we've pushed out like it's another Docker image, but it's to ECR instead of Docker Hub. Okay. So while that's running, let's go ahead and choose, what do we call this? Okay. ACM Cloud Live is what we call it. Okay. Okay, just remember it's there. Okay, so if it doesn't show up in this list, then we'll just proceed for now, and then we'll add it in after. So skip the deploy stage, skip, and then create pipeline. Usually there's like a little refresh button that lets you get the updated list, but I guess code pipeline doesn't have it. Okay, so it'll automatically start running, but we can ignore that for now. Let's click edit and then add stage, deploy, add stage, add action here. Okay, deploy, we can just say. Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay, and then down. Okay, so let's save that. Okay, maybe it won't save. Let's see. Let's go ahead and just click release change here. So I'm basically just trying to rerun it now that we added the stage. So if we click release change, it'll force it to rebuild and rerun. Okay, release. Okay, so ordinarily there'll only be one circle here. I think I think this one should not be circling. But basically what it's gonna do is it's gonna pull in the source code from GitHub, then build it. And then once it builds, the deploy stage will pull it from ECR and then deploy it with Elastic Beanstalk. Okay. Yeah, so let's give it a second. I think Elastic Beanstalk sometimes can take a while to spin up, just a little bit annoying. But we'll just see if it's able to spin up in time. Any questions on the process so far, though? I think that's what's most important. Okay, so the deployment failed, probably because the instance. Yeah, there we go. So it tried to deploy, but then it saw that the Elastic Beanstalk instance wasn't already in the ready state, so it didn't even bother trying. What we can do though is wait for it to wait for this to finish, and then we can click on retry stage. What that'll do is it won't have to build again or anything. It'll just kind of pull the image that's already sitting in ECR. We refresh this. There should be a new one here. So this one, the latest build, and then it will deploy that. And then what we're going to do after this works, assuming it does, is go to our own repository. And then if we go over to the week 5 code under source and then pages and home, we can see that this is the kind of main home page. We scroll down that you see on the site, right? It says take a look at the top and then like a little blue. What we're going to do is we're going to actually edit this and then commit a change. And just by committing the change, we'll see that the pipeline triggers and then it feeds through all these steps. And then within a couple minutes, if you go to Elastic Beanstalk, you'll be able to see that the change is deployed live. Yeah, sorry this is taking so long. I really don't know why it takes so long because to spin up just a regular EC2 instance is like basically like it'll take less than a couple seconds. So um mhm. Oh, I see what you're saying. So you mean here? You don't so assuming everything's working perfectly, all you need to do is just commit a change to the GitHub repository. Like you don't even need to touch AWS, and it'll automatically, because of the hook, it'll know to pull the code and then does it. Yep. Oh, which where do you think I'll deploy?
Like for
Did
the,
you say the environment has to be environment?
like the buildings have this launch, but.
Oh no, yeah, it should be. If you click on the link there,
Oh, okay, it helps.
it's on in the menu. It's not running.
Well, it's giving me some like. Congratulations, the Docker container.
Okay, yeah, that's the default one. So that means it's running the default one, and then if you start the pipeline and it's connected to that environment, then it should deploy, it should override. Yeah. Oh my God. Okay, let me just create another one. Yeah, what's up?
If you were to set up testing, would you set that up in like, code build and build spec and just like.
Mhm. Yeah, that's one way you could do it. Generally, I guess it just depends on like how heavy the tests are. I like to do it in GitHub, with the GitHub Actions if possible, because I like the UI. They're a lot, like it's cleaner to work with. But yeah, it's definitely possible to use code build. There's also it's also possible that you may want to use like some other service to do it, depending on like how heavy the tests are again. But
So these GitHub actions, something you start into like the pipeline.
yeah, so it would basically fit right in between GitHub, like the source code, and I guess code build. I honestly haven't done it myself with code build, but yeah, like the process would consist, well, one possible way of doing it would be you could have GitHub Actions, like do the tests, and assuming they pass, it would basically trigger the code pipeline, and then the code pipeline will pull from the GitHub. Instead of the code that's just checking for any commit, it will wait until it's like triggered by the GitHub Actions. Uh, yeah, like a call. Yeah, another way to do it would be just to kind of cut code build out. You can, with GitHub Actions, just create the ECR container or image itself. I think pushing it out, you'll have to do some credential finagling there. But once the image is in ECR, you can pretty easily deploy it with the rest of being stuck.
So you're, would it be done still to do pipeline? Like, 'cause it's
Yeah, good question. I don't really know if it would be necessary anymore at that point. Yeah. There may be a way to include it if you wanted to, but at that point, I mean, it's just the deploy step next, right? So you could probably trigger it directly from GitHub Actions. Okay, so this is, unfortunately, this is taking a lot longer than I thought it would. Um, oh, okay. Oh, wait, what the hell? Okay, so this one, wait, what? Okay, so the second environment is working, I guess. So let's go ahead and swap the pipeline over. So we're going to click on edit here, edit stage, this pencil. And then we want to clear that one. And then this one, the new one, and then done. Save. Okay, so I don't actually think we can get away with retrying stage in this case because we modified the pipeline. So we'll probably have to redo the entire release. Let's do that quickly. I think I'll leave the change bit for you guys as an exercise or whatever. You can do it at home. But hopefully, at least want to show off that it does go all the way through and deploy the site. Yeah, what's up?
In like the build spec,
Mhm.
like, I noticed there's like a thing called artifacts.
Yep.
And it just like outputs the JSON file, so is that like just the output of the build phase and they just like goes directly into the file? It's like, I know last time we had to manually. that file.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You can specify like for each stage, you can specify which artifacts to inherit. So from the source step, although it's not explicitly clear, it's the artifact from this would be all the files in the GitHub repository. And then the build step is taking that in as input, and then as output, yeah, it's just putting out whatever the build spec says. In this case, it should be the Docker run file. And then, yeah, exactly like you said, the Elastic Beanstalk is just using that.
So how do you know like, or first these like artifacts just each
Mhm.
one outputs of this file?
Yeah, I think it's a relatively common term, I guess.
And then like, is it like a kind of like a function where it's just expecting a single parameter? Because I noticed like, it doesn't say like where to put this file. It just like outputs it. But is there somewhere where you say like, oh, put this file or like
Mhm.
upload files?
Yeah, so from my understanding, it's basically the way code pipeline works is that it's storing all of these in S3 somewhere. Which I mean, we didn't really talk about it too much, but S3 is essentially like you can think of it like your own file explorer or file storage system. So it's creating a folder for the pipeline, and then under that it has like a run number 3. So this is like run number, I don't know, 5 or whatever run number that we created. And then under that it has folder for source artifacts and then one for build artifacts. So then the it basically would store it there, and then deploy would know, okay, look under, if my input is build, look under the build artifacts folder, and then just grab out all of that as my input. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess like also, I meant like, how does it know, like, it's when you set up like Elastic Beanstalk, it's a bunch of fields, right?
Yeah.
Like, how does it know that that one goes into?
Yeah, so that's specifically has to do with how Elastic Beanstalk is configured. I think that is a good question. Oh, okay. Yeah, so I think well, we'll get to this in a second, but because Elastic Beanstalk is kind of a sort of managed service, they know that if you're using like Docker, for example, that's the configuration file you would provide. I think there are probably other equivalents for the other frameworks. If you're wanting to deploy your container with like Kubernetes or something that's a little bit more involved, you probably need to have additional kind of like not just a single file, but it's just specific to Elastic Beanstalk because it's meant to be kind of user friendly. Yeah. Yep. Okay, so it says it failed to authenticate, right? That's because we forgot to follow this step here. We have to give the Elastic Beanstalk role, this one here, I believe, permission to access CCO. Okay, so now that that's done, yeah, feel free to head out if you need to. Oh shoot, I don't need to do that. Try this maybe. Okay, well, we're gonna keep running it and let the recording play out. Hopefully everything works out. And yep, have a great night. And then if it does, we should be good to go. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to stick around. Other than that, we're gonna be off next week actually for midterms, but we will be back week 7. I think we're gonna have a study social next week, but we'll post in the Discord. Just keep an eye.
Any of you guys are wondering why there wasn't an email sent out this week? It's because our MailChimp account is over capacity and we have to pay money to like increase it. So yeah, we're working that out.
Yep.
How long does it usually take?
Normally it's quite a bit faster than it was today, so I don't know. The deploy should work now, hopefully. Yep. Just want to get it on the recording though, so. Right. Come on.
Like all the cloud providers just like it's just like the capacity just crashes during the night.
Same for GCP, it's like I tried at like midnight, it's like can't do anything.
Actually,
Yeah. It's like for the CS172 card, I got to deploy one of the deep learning VMs, like no capacity anywhere. We could just add GPUs. Try with
Yeah.
thank you. Would any of the environment stuff be faster if you like run out configuration?
yeah, well, if you use like a bigger instance, it should be. I don't know, like for the building stuff and the
The
deployment,
deploy work.
okay. Yep, let's go ahead and check.
Oh,
Hey,
yeah.
okay. Nice. All right, so I'm gonna quickly stop the recording here then. Yep. See ya.